eBay just turned 30 years old, which I guess makes it middle-aged, right? Is that middle-aged? I don't know. But over the last 3 decades, eBay and reselling have evolved into something very, very different than what it first started. Some say it's gotten a lot worse. AI is reshaping how we list and source, competition is way up, and buyers expect way more for a lot less. And somewhere along the way, a lot of sellers, they just quit. Others never even got started. They were convinced it's too late or too saturated or too filled with scammers or too broken to bother. But when you really dig into the reasons why people are walking away from eBay, you start to notice something. Most of the reasons aren't actually about eBay at all. They're about something deeper, something that says more about the way that we think than the way eBay has changed. So let's talk about that. Hello and welcome back to my weekly show where I talk about the ups and downs and in-betweens of selling on eBay. I'm back with another week. I had a crazy week of sales. You won't believe all the stuff that I sold this week. I went to some great garage sales. Also, I started doing live streams. Did y'all watch my live streams last week? I've never really done that before. I'm going to be doing live streams every single Thursday at 8 o'clock Eastern time. So that's 7 o'clock Central. I don't know what that is on Pacific. Is that 5 Pacific? I don't know. But anyway, and I'm going to bring some guests along, other YouTubers. This week, my guest is going to be Joe from Profit First Reseller. If you're not familiar with Joe, I think you'll like him. If you like my channel, you're probably going to like his channel. But anyway, he's going to join me on the live show later this week. But for now, let's go ahead and jump right back into why people are quitting eBay. And I want to start with, I think, one of the biggest reasons. So you see this one play out all the time. Somebody lists like 20 items. They maybe wait a week or something. Nothing sells, and they immediately assume eBay is broken or dead. And the problem isn't eBay. It's that they're expecting instant results from a process that takes months to understand. And even when they do start making sales, the numbers, they rarely move in like a predictable line. Sales fluctuate over the course of the year. Some weeks they can feel like a windfall, and others feel like, tumbleweeds or whatever. Like there's seasonal trends, there's holidays, there's buyer behaviors, there's macroeconomic issues. All of this stuff creates dips. And for new sellers, those dips feel like the sky is falling. So without that perspective that this is normal, it's easy to panic and then just quit. But what successful sellers understand is that this is a long game. It's not about listing 100 items a day and grinding nonstop, because some part-time sellers make a great income listing just like 5 items a week. Others, maybe they have to list 50. And it's not about the volume. It's about understanding demand, it's understanding pricing, and it's about being consistent and keeping your expectations realistic. And when you do this over time, your sourcing improves, your listings get sharper, your results, they start to become predictable, even if there's week to week, the numbers still wobble. That learning curve doesn't happen in week 1, or even week 5. It happens in week 30 after most people chasing the quick wins have already given up. So if you're looking for fast results, you're setting yourself up for frustration. But if you're willing to play the long game, like track what sells and improving your process and making smarter decisions, you can still build a steady and profitable income on eBay, even part-time. That's exactly what I do. It's not easy. It's not instant. It doesn't happen overnight. A lot can go wrong. It's way more difficult than it used to be in a lot of ways, but it's still very much possible. And patience and consistency pays off. So you just need to be patient. And speaking of things going wrong, one of the most common paths to quitting is this. Something goes wrong and the seller decides it's eBay's fault or somebody else's fault. They blame the algorithm. They say their listings are being hidden, or that eBay's favoring big sellers, or that the platform is broken, or fees are too high, or buyers suck, or whatever. In fact, you can pause this video right now and look down in the comments below and see plenty of complaints about eBay. Every single one of my videos is filled with them. There's just no shortage of things to complain about, and I get it. It feels good to complain. It's cathartic, but it's also dangerous. Because once the belief takes hold that it's someone else's problem to fix and the need to complain sets in, it becomes almost impossible to make progress. You come to a grinding halt because there's no next move. If the platform is the problem, the only fix is for someone else or something else to change. And the moment your success depends on someone or something else changing, you're basically done because you have no control over other people or the platform. And when you complain about it, it sort of feels productive, like you actually did something to solve the problem you're facing, but you didn't. You just aired your grievances to the ether, hoping to get an upvote. Like, take fees, for example. You hear this a lot as a reason to walk away from eBay, that the fees are just out of control. But are they? I mean, sure, they've gone up over time with everything else. And obviously I would like to pay nothing in fees, but that's just unrealistic. It's not going to happen. Like, where else are you going to find an audience of 130 million buyers to sell your vintage underwear? And that comes at a cost. I can just tell you it would cost way more than even 15 or 20% to reach an audience even a fraction of that size if you were trying on your own without eBay. Other marketplaces often charge as much or more for a fraction of that audience size. Even the average eBay consignment shop or estate sale company is going to take around 40% of your profits and often more. But look, don't get me wrong, like, eBay is not perfect. There's a lot of problems there, but it's just never going to match exactly what you want it to do. Things change constantly, like the algorithm, buyer behavior, fees, rules, even what sells changes all the time. Your job as a seller isn't to control the platform, right? Because that's impossible. It's just out of your control. Your job is to control yourself, your inventory, your listings, your pricing, your strategy. Expecting eBay to mold itself around you personally is just unrealistic. That's just not how the real world works, especially not in business. Nobody owes you results. You're not guaranteed sales just because you showed up. Business is indifferent. It doesn't care whether you think something is fair or not. You either make it work or you don't. Smart sellers understand that eBay is a tool, not a guarantee. It's not going to provide a perfect selling experience catered to you specifically, but it gives you a platform to succeed if you acknowledge that change will happen and you're willing to adapt. That doesn't mean ignoring problems. Some issues may be legitimate deal breakers for your business, but it does mean assessing challenges objectively and not making life-changing decisions with emotion or out of frustration. So yeah, eBay has flaws. Every platform does. There are legitimate reasons to quit, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but if you don't fix the core problem of externalizing blame when things go wrong, you're going to take that same mindset to the next marketplace or the next business, and failure will follow you wherever you go. So before pointing fingers or making an emotional exit, recognize what is actually in your control and consider whether adapting could keep your business moving forward. Another common reason that sellers quit is they never actually took it seriously. They treated it like a hobby but expect business results. And I'm not talking about whether you're doing this full-time or part-time. Like, I do this part-time, so some might call it a hobby, which is fine. You can call it a hobby if you want to, but I treat it like a real business because it is one, regardless of how much time I spend on it. And that's the difference. Sellers who don't take it seriously list here and there, they ship late, they ignore messages, they never track their numbers, and they still expect steady sales and blame eBay when they don't get them. They treat it like a casual side project, but expect it to pay like a real job. And that actually can work for a while, especially if you're selling personal items or flipping a few things that you got for Christmas or whatever. But the minute something goes wrong, like a return or a chargeback or a slow month, it all falls apart. And you're like, screw this, I quit, because there's no structure holding anything up. Successful sellers build systems, even simple ones. They track what's working, they create routines, they get a handle on their numbers. They know exactly how much money they're making instead of hyper-focusing on a 90-day total that means nothing. They make intentional decisions, and none of this has to be perfect. It just has to exist. You have to do it. And the sellers who drift in and out, chasing dopamine hits without putting any real structure behind it, those are the sellers that burn out and quit. They think eBay stopped working, but really they just never built something solid enough to last. And so when things got tough, and they will get tough, they just quit. And even those that do build something successful, that doesn't always mean it's going to stick around forever. Some sellers, they don't quit because they failed. They quit because they built something they didn't like anymore. They built the wrong kind of business. Now, there's a million ways to be successful on eBay and a million ways to fail. You can sell used clothing out of your closet or run a 50,000 item warehouse or do this solo or hire a team or flip video games or sell collectibles or part out electronics or go full liquidation. All of it can work. All of it can also fail depending on who's running it. The problem is a lot of people follow someone else's model. They pick a niche that they don't really care about just because they think it's going to make them a lot of money. They chase what's lucrative even if it slowly drains the life out of them. I've talked to sellers who are making great money on things like jeans, but after a while they couldn't stand the thought of leafing through another rack of Levi's at a thrift store. And that's not a sourcing problem, even though it sounds like one. It's a misalignment problem. You need to be asking yourself, am I still going to find this interesting in 5 or 10 years? Because those are the timescales you should be thinking about if you want to build a sustainable business. And then there's the scaling trap, where you rent space and hire help and take on debt. And now the business that used to feel flexible feels like a full-time job, which is that thing that you were probably escaping in the first place, but with more stress and worse hours. And on paper, it might even look successful, but you're miserable, Eventually you quit not because eBay doesn't work anymore, but because you built the wrong version of it for yourself. You made growth at any cost your goal instead of sustainability. And underneath all of that is short-term thinking. That lucrative niche might be profitable right now, but it's just not sustainable if you hate the work. Eventually you're going to burn out or lose interest or quit the second something goes wrong, or pivot and lose your progress. Now, I'm an everything seller, not because it's the most efficient, because it definitely isn't, or because it's the most profitable, because it's not that either, but because it's the model I'm most likely to be doing in 20 years because I really enjoy it, and that's what matters. Otherwise you're just signing up for another job. So make sure you build the right kind of business for yourself, not anyone else. And it's important to remember, reselling comes with friction. There's just a lot of emotional noise you have to deal with in this business. You deal with returns that feel unfair, and buyers who lie, and people who message you with 20 questions and never make a purchase, shipping claims, damaged packages, partial refunds, lowball offers, chargebacks, entitlement, delays, accusations. All of that stuff is real. You do have to deal with it, but you also have to keep it in perspective. The vast majority of sales go off without a hitch, with no questions or complaints and no issues, just money coming into your bank account and item going out of your garage. But nobody makes YouTube videos or Reddit threads about the 99.9% of sales that work. They talk about the 0.1% that don't. So if you're on the outside looking in, or you're new to the platform, it can feel like the whole place is filled with problems and only getting worse. But it's just not, and if you lose that perspective, you start making decisions based on the exceptions, not the rule. Like take scams, for example. It's a very common reason why people quit or never get started because they got scammed or they worry about getting scammed. And scams do happen, but they're very, very rare. You got to keep in mind you're running a business here, and every single business comes with some level of risk or loss. Brick and mortar stores, they deal with shoplifting. We deal with scammers. Those are our shoplifters. And when it happens, it sucks. Don't get me wrong. Like maybe somebody gets you for $50 or even $100 and eBay doesn't side with you or whatever. But if you let that moment shut down your business, that scam didn't cost you $100. It cost you way more. It cost you your entire business. Like think about how much money that business would have made over the next 5, 10, or 15 years. So that's not just $100 gone. It's the entire money-making machine turned off over a relatively rare and minor cost of doing business. And if it's not rare and you're getting scammed frequently, then you're doing something wrong here. So you need to be able to handle the emotional noise that comes along with this business and learn not to take things personally. Another thing that's interesting is that some sellers don't quit because it's hard. They quit because they were never clear on what they actually were trying to do in the first place. Like maybe they said they wanted extra income, but they never really defined how much or how often or what kind of effort they were willing to put in to get that income. Or they said they wanted flexibility, but got frustrated the first time that sales slowed down. Or they said they wanted to be their own boss, but hated being responsible for every decision they make. So when things get messy, they just bail, not because the model doesn't work, but because they never set any direction in the first place. When you know what you want, like how much money you want to make and what kind of schedule you want to have, doing what kind of work specifically, you can then make real decisions to get it. it. You can adjust when something isn't working or aligning with your expectations, but when you have no expectations, you have nothing to align with. So you have to be deliberate in this business. It doesn't automatically mold itself to fit you. You have to build it to fit the life that you actually want. And that's actually the great thing about eBay. Like I said, there's a million ways to be successful on the platform, but you have to design it to be what you want. Otherwise, it just ends up being one more thing you walk away from. Not because it failed, but because you never knew what you wanted in the first place. So people often aren't quitting eBay because the platform is broken. They're quitting because it doesn't match their expectations. They expect instant results or predictable sales or a smooth ride. And when reality doesn't line up with that vision, they get frustrated and they just walk away. But here's the thing, you can't change eBay, right? You can't force the algorithm. You can't control every buyer. You can't make the platform conform to your specific expectations. What you can change is how you approach it. You can change your expectations. You can change your mindset and how you respond to the challenges that are going to pop up. You need to really think of it like the weather. Maybe you had a picnic planned and then it rained or whatever. No amount of complaining is going to change that. You can't control the rain. It's going to happen. You can either sit at home and pout, or you can grab some umbrellas and have fun anyway. That's the skill that separates sellers who quit from sellers who find success. They adapt, they adjust, they learn what works and they ignore what doesn't and keep moving forward. Mastering that isn't just how you succeed on eBay, it's how you succeed in life. There's a line in a book I read recently that I keep coming back to. When will everything be okay? It asks. And the answer is when you're okay with everything. I like that. So try to be okay with everything, even the stuff you don't agree with or the stuff that frustrates you, and then everything will be okay. All right, let's move on. I want to jump into my garage sale finds because it was a weird day for garage sales. I didn't go to a whole lot of garage sales, but the ones I did ended up being really, really good. Check out the stuff that I got. All right, so I did pick up quite a bunch of stuff here, including this box of, they called them shoebox cassette players. You can see that it says a shoebox cassette honey hole negotiable. I did negotiate. I bought the whole box for $10. My guess is most of this stuff is not going to be worth reselling or is broken. But at $10, I figured I'd take the chance just to see everything that was in there. And it turns out there was at least two that were definitely worth picking up. The first is right down here, this Texas Instruments Program Manager. This thing, if it works, should probably go for 40 or 50 bucks, I think, maybe a little bit more. And then this Walkman was at the bottom of it. And so I don't know if this thing works. Typically, there's a fair chance that it probably won't work. But even so, even in the non-working condition, it should sell for $20 to $30. If it works, it should be probably around $100. So these old Walkmans do really, really well. And then I did get this tape, which there you go, self-healing. I'm going to heal myself with this tape as I test all of these different shoebox cassette recorders.
I learned that resentment only eats away at me. And it did. In my case, holding on to old blame and feeling resentment for all that they did to me helped to create my dis-ease. Releasing and forgiving and letting go helped me to heal myself.
Anyway, I just, I knew I wasn't going to make a ton of money, and I knew it was a gamble picking up something like this, but I like buying boxes of things like this. I think it's just fun to go through. I think it's fun to find a diamond in the rough. To find that Walkman at the bottom, I think is just pretty cool. So I like buying stuff like this. They don't always turn out. I'm probably going to end up donating half of it back, at least, if not more. So moving on, I also got this Chevrolet overhaul manual for a 1973 truck. I like buying these old car manuals like this. Also, my grandpa worked for Chevrolet as a painter for 50 years, so I just thought that was cool. It'll go for about 15 bucks. This is definitely the find of the day, is a 3DS, this red 3DS, and I paid 60 bucks for everything. That's for the 3DS and for all the games. And the 3DS is in okay condition. There's no stylus, and also the little joystick thing is broken. It does power on, it does hold a charge, it seems, so everything looks good there. I'm guessing in its condition will be worth maybe $100 to $120 for the console on its own. And then the games, let's see, I got Super Mario 2, I got Mario World, what is that, Paper Mario sticker, I can't tell, sticker something. Fire Emblem Awakening, Fire Emblem Fates and Conquest, Star Fox 3D, Mario Kart 3DS, or I'm sorry, Mario Kart DS, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, Super Street Fighter 3D Edition, Pokemon Heart Gold, that's probably the best one of the bunch there, and then Zelda Phantom Hourglass. So for 60 bucks, definitely worth picking all those up. That was a pretty good find. I also got this workwear jacket. So this is a brand, it's called Mascot or Masco. I think this is French or Dutch, I'm not sure, but a lot of these like European workwear brands can do really well. I couldn't find a whole lot of comps on this. It's an extra small, so the size is not great, but even so, I think it'll still sell. I paid $8 for it, and it's brand new with tags. It needs to be cleaned up a little bit. I also got this PlayStation shirt. I don't know, I just thought it was fun. I paid $1 for it, and it's probably something you got, a decade ago at Marshall's or something like that. It'll probably go for 15 or 20. Then I got a pair of shoes. These are Gel Venture 9s from ASICS. They're just in really good condition, size 9.5. I think they are men's. Maybe they're women's. I'm not exactly sure. I paid 10 bucks for them. I'm going to guess they're going to go for at least 50 around there in this used condition. So all in all, not a bad haul for this Saturday as garage sales are coming to a close here in my area. Might be one of the few last garage sales that I go to. So that's it. Okay, now let's take a look at my numbers for the week. Look at these numbers. These are crazy. This is the last 7 days. Again, I do this part-time. These are crazy numbers for me part-time. Gross sale amount, $3,472. Net sales of $1,756. My goal for the week every year is $600 net. And so that's like almost triple my goal. Like all those video games, like almost all of those have already sold. There's a reason that video games is a saturated category to get into, is because it's super easy to list. They sell very quickly and for a lot of money. And so if you have the ability to come across lots of video games, like you're going to be making a lot of money. The problem is they're just hard to find. Those that I found at that garage sale, that doesn't happen very often. But anyway, $72.34 was my average gross per sale. My average net per sale, $35.18. My net profit margin, 51%. My net profit margin is lower than normal because I'm selling quite a few things on consignment. In fact, I got a really amazing sale, probably the highest sale of the year. It sold on consignment. So when you sell on consignment, I'm paying 50% of the net return out to the person I'm consigning with. And so it's going to bring that net profit margin down pretty low. But obviously my net sales are way up because of this deal. You can see most of my net return this week is coming from garage sales, mostly those video games. This is that consignment deal. That's that one item that I did sell. And I've got stuff spread across different bulk buys and thrift stores mostly. Coming on down here, I spent $420 on new inventory over the last 7 days. My cost of goods that sold was $230, $534 in marketplace fees, and $448 in shipping labels. Look at the number of new listings. How amazing is that? Y'all know my goal is 35. I try to do 5 per day, so 35 per week. So 62. How awesome is that? It's almost double. I knew I was on vacation last week. I had vacation mode turned on. That's how I come back from vacation mode. I turn it off. I list as much as I possibly can. And it seems to get my store up and running pretty quickly. You can just see the progression of sales over the course of the week. And it follows pretty closely my listing patterns here, except for September 9th. Looks like I listed more than I sold there. But look at that. It's just very steady climb over the weekend of number of new listings and number of sales. My average time to list is 6 days. That's the average amount of time between buying something and then listing it. You want that number to be low, right? Because otherwise you're creating a large death pile. So for me, the average time to list was 6 days. The average time to sell, that's the time between listing and actually selling, is 3 months. And so on average, that's the age of my inventory. 3 months is about my average. And my return on investment is 589% over the last 7 days. Now let's go ahead and jump into my top 10 sales, starting with this Pampered Chef. This one I'm calling it out because I did the thing, and you know the thing. This happens to you all the time. I know it does, is when you have something on your inventory that hasn't sold for a really long time, like this, for example, 4 months. I bought this 4 months ago. I walked by it like just the other day. Whenever this thing sold, I walked by it. I was like, I forgot I had this. I wonder why this hasn't sold yet. And later that day it sells. What's going on when the universe does that? I know it happens to you. It doesn't work if you go around and purposely look at things or touch things to get them to sell. It has to be natural and organic. It happened this time. I don't really believe that anything mystical is going on there. I don't know how to explain it. Probably confirmation bias. I don't know. But anyway, that's what happened with this. I looked at it. It sold for $38.48. My net return was $14.91. I always buy these Pampered Chef, not always, but typically buy this Pampered Chef like stoneware stuff. Usually goes for good money, even in used condition. You can see this is not in perfect condition. I paid $3 at a garage sale and made $14.91. Ended up shipping, cost to ship was a little bit higher than I was expecting. I think it went pretty far. So a little bit lower net return than I was hoping on this one, but still almost $15. Coming in at number 9, you just saw this one on the garage sale video. I did buy that big box of the shoebox cassette players, and I think I donated probably 60% of it, redonated 60% of it, and listed the rest. Unfortunately, that Walkman did not end up working, but still, it'll sell for between $20 and $30. But this one sold really quick, 2 hours for $26.98 for this Panasonic shoebox cassette player. This $12.84 was my net return on this. So that means I already made the money back from that box. So everything else that sells is going to be profit. And these, I knew that there was going to be some value in that box. Not a ton, but it's just, I don't know. I like buying stuff like that, so I did. Coming in at number 8 is this vintage Star Wars bedspread. I bought 2 of these at a garage sale. It was that garage sale where I bought a ton of stuff a few weeks back. Anyway, 2 identical bedspreads here. This one sold for $50. That's $40 plus $9.99 in shipping. And my net return on this was $23.56. The other one has not sold yet, but still listed, and I expect it'll sell pretty quickly. With something like this, Star Wars vintage from the 90s is typically a good bet, but especially like a comforter like this, you just want to make sure it's not overly dirty or smelly or smells like cigarettes or something like that. And these were really clean. I was surprised at how clean they were. They had no smell. They had no visible stains or anything like that. So that's why I picked it up. Otherwise, I probably would not have bought this. Coming in at number 7 is this lot of garage door openers. I bought these for $15 from a bulk buy. So I actually had about 50 in this lot. And I'll just kind of tell you how I go through the process of listing a lot of stuff like this. So when I buy $15 on about 50 different garage door openers, what I do is I go through them and I identify any of them that are more expensive than others. And so there's a lot of repeats in here. There's a lot of very similar LiftMaster ones. You can see there's almost half of these are these LiftMaster brand, almost the exact same one. But there was others that were just different and more valuable. And I basically pick a threshold, like 15 or 20 bucks. If it's worth more than 15 or 20 bucks, I'll sell it on its own. Otherwise, I'm going to put them in a lot together and sell them. So I had 38 of them here put into a lot. I had it listed at 125 and I took a best offer at $112.50 with free shipping. The net return on this was $77.31. My guess, this probably went to another reseller. They're going to probably make some decent money on it. And again, I could have gone through and created 38 individual listings on this, but I just didn't want to. I just wanted to get it out the door. So I was happy to get $77 for it. And hopefully somebody else can make a little money off of it as well. Coming in at number 6 is this Brizzo. Brizzo's a brand like Kohler or Delta. They make faucets and things like that. These are bathroom lavatory faucet lever handles. And they're worth a lot of money. Look at that, $134.99. This came from a bulk buy of a lot of different stuff like this. They were all basically returns, these fixtures. This one, net return of $88.58. So it was a really good one. Did take 5 months to sell, but let's see how this bulk buy is doing. So it looks like I still have 72 items actively listed with a list value of $5,400. And 118 have sold. So I'm well over 50% now. My net return so far is $4,044. So with the remaining $5,400 in total active list value, and my net margins are anywhere between 50 and 60%. So there's another $2,500 or so of net return value. It'll take a while to sell, but that's okay. Coming in at number 5 is this Nintendo 3DS. It's such a weird thing. At that garage sale, first of all, I showed up at 9:30 in the morning, which at garage sale time, that's pretty late. And if you show up at a garage sale late in the day and you see video games, it's either one of two things. It's been picked over, meaning there's just nothing but garbage games left that aren't actually worth buying to resell, or it's wildly overpriced. And so I saw this 3DS sitting there, and I saw all the games around it, and I just very quickly noticed that they're probably decent games. They hadn't been picked over yet. Obviously, they hadn't been picked over yet. So then it was like, okay, this person must be asking a ridiculous amount of money for it. So I asked him, I was like, oh, how much for your 3DS? And he goes, I was thinking like $40. I was like, okay, well, that's a pretty good price. And he said, well, the joystick is broken. There's no stylus on it. So I think that's why he was pricing it down. But even then, I knew for parts it was going to sell between $70 and $80. So even if it didn't work at all, it would still be worth buying at $40. And I said, okay, well, how much, what about the games? And he wanted $5 each for the games. And I said, well, how about you just tell me what you want for all the games and the 3DS? And he said, how about 60? And I thought that was a very good price, obviously, and bought it. And it was. It was so weird. This was like a neighborhood style garage sale. I have no idea why. There must have been no other resellers. Like, that's the only explanation, that no other resellers had been to that garage sale, even at $930, $945. And so it's just very crazy to find that. You just don't find that very often. This one sold for $129.98. It took 2 hours to sell. If it was in better condition, it would have gone for $150, $160, maybe a little bit more. I was happy to get, a net return of $93.71 off of this 3DS. And it just sells so quickly. And I sold so many games this week. It was just really, really incredible how many games I sold, including this one right here. This Pokemon Heart Gold version. So this came from that same collection, sold for $149.99 in 2 hours. Just wild. And in researching this particular game to sell it on eBay, I noticed some market manipulation going on. And I was going to talk about it right now, but in fact, I think I'm going to wait and talk about it as the subject of my video next week, because it's really, really interesting. I don't think a lot of sellers are realizing what's going on here, where the market price on eBay is being manipulated by other sellers. And I think it's costing a lot of sellers a lot of money. And so it's really interesting. I'm going to run through it next week. I'll save the details for then. But either way, this one sold in 2 hours. It had a net return of $101.85. Just an incredible find. And I just made so much money off of this one garage sale find. Coming in at number 3 is this New Heat touchscreen programmable thermostat. So this is like when you have radiant floors in your bathroom. This is a thermostat that goes on the wall to control those radiant floors. This sold for $136.98. Net return was $108.24. I got them at a garage sale. I got 2 of them. So this is the second one to sell. Just another incredible garage sale find earlier this year, back in May. $5 each, so $10 total. And on both of them, my net return ended up being $208.35. Just why is somebody selling that so cheap at a garage sale? I don't know, but I'm not complaining. Just an amazing find. 2 of these things for $5 each. Coming in at number 2, check this thing out. This is a mid-century modern Murano art glass style lamp. We got it a while ago. Right, we got it at a St. Vincent de Paul back in February of 2024, and this is an interesting one. And what did we pay for it? We didn't pay very much, $13. So my wife picked this up immediately. It's really big, first of all. It's probably 2.5 feet tall, right? Maybe 2.5 feet tall, I'd say. And we were able to find no comps at all, similar ones on eBay, but nothing exact. And we did find a comp for one on like a boutique website that sold for $1,300. You got to kind of take those types of non-eBay comps on just random people's websites with a grain of salt. They may not have any accuracy to them at all, but we did start high with this. You'll look, and I originally listed it in the $1,400 price range. Like, I was just being overly ambitious. Like, I was just like, oh, let's see if somebody wants it at this price. Tons of watchers, tons of lowball offers. And I just sort of sat on it and honestly forgot about it. But very recently, like, when was it? Yeah, on September 12th, I changed it from $1,499 to $345. I was like, let's get this thing sold. I didn't expect that it was going to sell the next day. So happy to get it out the door, though. This thing was a pain to ship. My wife spent like an hour getting it shipped this morning. You'll see a cost to ship here of $51.73. That we had to avoid that label, so we're going to get a credit for that later. So my net return's a little bit higher, actually, because we did have to buy a second label here. It did take $84.76 to ship. It was a very large box. We had to pack it very well, and we also got insurance on it as well. So we just want to make sure it gets there intact in shape. I know it will. My wife does an incredible job packing this stuff. So the net return on this one, $220.24. In reality, once we get that $50 back and the cost of ship, it's going to jump to $270. So our net return is really $270 on this. It just takes eBay about a week to pay you back for avoided shipping label. So we'll get that $51 back in about a week. Just a really great find on this thing. It took a long time to sell, but once we got the price right, it was out the door almost immediately. And that leaves us with number one. This is the most expensive thing that I've sold this year, I'm pretty sure. It's a set of four of these dancing she-devil ballerina things. They're vintage. They were made in Japan. I did make a mistake on this one, and it's interesting. I'll talk about that here in a second, but they sold on eBay for $914. That's $900 plus $14.99 in shipping. I had it listed at $1,000, and I took a best offer. I sent out a best offer at $900, and they accepted the offer, which was great, and we packed it very well, and it made it to the buyer. But you'll see here, a refund, a partial refund. I very rarely give partial refunds. Every once in a while, you'll get people reaching out to you after you sell them something, complaining about something, trying to get a partial refund out of you. I almost always just tell the people, hey, I don't give partial refunds, sorry. If you'd like to return it, go ahead. But this person reached out with a very nice message saying, thanking me for sending it and packing it so well, or my wife packing it so well. But saying like, I paid $900 for these, which was over $200 per figurine. And I didn't know that there was going to be damage that was repaired on it. And that was surprising to me. So immediately I was like, like my spidey sense was tingling. I'm like, is this person trying to run a scam on me? They sent some pictures of the black ceramic figurine here, saying that the head had been super glued on, like it was broken off and it had been super glued back on, with some very detailed pictures of it. And so I was immediately just like, that doesn't sound right. But what I did is I went back to my own pictures and I was able to zoom in, and I just didn't notice it. They did such a good job fixing this repair, and I didn't do a good enough job inspecting it, that it had been broken and it had been repaired. And I was able to confirm that on my own photos. And so I apologized, of course. I said, hey, you can, return the whole thing if you want to, or I'll give you $100 back, which is about 50% of one of the figurines. And the buyer was very happy to take $100 back to keep the figurines. I was happy with that. It's just a good reminder, not every buyer that does that is trying to scam you. And in this case, I was able to confirm that what they were saying was legitimate. Happy to offer the $100 refund. So really this sold for $814.99. My net return in particular was $325.90. That's because this was sold on consignment. So you'll see I paid out $325.90 to the person I'm consigning with, because we split that 50-50. But really great sale. Definitely keep an eye out for these things. If you see them out, they're very valuable. Again, individually, I was the only one selling the full collection, and I did price it up for that. But you could buy these individually for like $150 to $250. So I figured at $1,000, the maximum of the individual price, willing to take offers below it was a decent strategy, and very happy to get, effectively $814.99 on this one. Kind of sucks that I made the mistake, but it wasn't a big deal in the long run. All right, lights out. Did y'all watch my live streams? Like, I've never done live streams before, and I was a little hesitant to do it, I guess, but I had a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to interact with y'all on the live stream. I just did it. Well, I did a test one, didn't announce it at all, and a bunch of y'all showed up, and we had fun. Then I scheduled one, just sort of another test. I'm testing different software to help me manage the live streams, and a lot of y'all showed up for that one. So I decided I'm going to make it a weekly thing. I'm going to do a live stream every Thursday at 7 p.m. And I'm going to try every week to invite somebody else on the show. I think it just makes it more interesting besides me just, jibber jabbering the whole time. So let me know what you think of it, though. Let me know if you like the live shows. I'm looking forward to doing it and interacting with y'all in a different way, and hopefully answering some of y'all's questions and just having a good time. So we'll see. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.